The Adult Ballet Studio is a podcast featuring conversations with the empowering voices of the adult ballet community, a world where passion has no limits and dreams can take flight. My name's Elizabeth Blossfield, and I'm an adult ballet dancer and your host. Welcome to the studio. Happy Tuesday, everybody, and welcome to the Adult Ballet Studio. I'm so excited to introduce you to the guest that's in the studio today. I've been following his work on social media for a while and was so excited to have a chance to sit down and chat with him. Sander Blommaert is the founder and director of Blommaert Ballet School in Birmingham, England. He founded the school in 2016 as Blommaert Ballet and Toning, where he worked with a lot of adults to incorporate ballet and fitness into their lifestyle, before officially rebranding as Blommaert Ballet School in 2021. Since then, BBS has become known as an audition preparation school, working with young students pursuing professional ballet careers as well as offering classes for all ages. Over the last 2 years, students studying with BBS have secured over 100 places at vocational schools. One of the best parts of all of this, in my opinion, is that with his focus on one-on-one training, Sander built a ballet studio in his own private garden, which honestly sounds like the best ballet oasis. And he was able to do all of this in the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic, which makes it extra impressive. Speaking of the pandemic, online one-on-one teaching services became extremely popular at the school during the pandemic shutdowns and have remained in place even after restrictions have lifted. The school offers a ballet on demand program, which expands access to ballet and has paved the way for the school's private ballet tuition, contemporary strength and conditioning programs in order to help students with audition and competition prep and general technical improvement. Also during the pandemic, Sander shared that he taught 100 ballet classes in 100 days over Instagram Live and raised a lot of money for the NHS, or the UK's National Health Service, in the process. He's continued offering a Thursday online ballet class for anyone who wants to participate, which goes back to his roots of teaching adults and showcases how dedicated he is to the ballet community. I love this, and we'll talk more about it on this episode. As for Sander himself, he trained at the Royal Ballet School of Antwerp until the age of 15, before joining the Royal Ballet School in London for a final 3 years of training at the upper school. After graduating, Sander was offered a contract with the Royal Ballet Company, where he danced for 7 years and was promoted to first artist. We'll talk all about his professional ballet career as well as his work with the adult ballet community on this episode. So check it out.
Hello.
Hey, Sander. Well, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Yeah,
Good.
it's 2 o'clock here now, and I'm actually done for today because it's my first week back after the Easter holiday. But most schools in the UK are still on the Easter holiday. It was an easy Friday for me, so I'm finished after this, which is very nice.
Oh, that's nice. We love an easy Friday. That's awesome.
I know.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to talking to you.
Of course.
Before we dive into, I want to talk about your career and your background with dance. But before we get into that, I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about, how you founded Blommaert Ballet School. I know you founded it a few years ago in 2021. So what led to that and how did that all sort of come together?
Yeah. So when I stopped dancing at the Royal Ballet, I went back to the Royal Ballet School to do the vocational ballet teachers diploma. They have two strands, as they call it: the vocational strand, which is to teach want-to-be professionals, and then the educational strand, which is more about introducing ballet in mainstream schools. So I did the vocational strand, and it was a 2-year course with only Friday attendance. So I had to find a job during those 2 years. So I actually founded Blommaert Ballet and Toning in 2016. And that was for adults only. So for 2 years, I had my own kind of dance business focused on adult dancers only. And the reason it was called Ballet and Toning is I also qualified as a barworks instructor, the Lotte Berg method. She was a German ballerina who came up with this exercise exercise class that's very much ballet technique based, but it wasn't using turnout or anything like that. But it was really good. And I taught that as well. So during those 2 years, I did that. A lot of evening classes, after work classes for the adults, and also early morning classes. And then on a Friday, I went into the Royal Ballet School to obviously do the course for 2 years. And then I graduated in 2018, July, and about a week later, I got a call to see if I was interested to join Elmhurst Ballet School here in Birmingham as the graduate men's teacher. So I did that. And then COVID happened. And during COVID, I started my own private tuition on Zoom because the beautiful Zoom was created, and that opened a lot of doors. And it kind of blossomed from there. And I thought, I'm going to go my own way and do this full time. And yeah, I think we're just over 2 years in, and now we've got a team of 7 because there's a lot of work coming in. And yeah, here we are.
We've had so much success in just a couple of years with the ballet school. And I love that you really got your start owning your own business, teaching adults, because this podcast focuses on, ballet for adults. So it's exciting for me. I can't wait to dive into that a little bit. But I meant to ask where specifically in the UK you're based, because I know you're from Belgium originally, right?
Yeah, so I'm from Bruges in Belgium. I went to the Royal Ballet School of Antwerp in Belgium from the ages of 10 to 15. And when I was 14, I did a ballet competition and I won a summer school at the Royal Ballet School. And when I did that summer school, I was awarded a scholarship for the summer school the year after. And so when I was 15, I went back and did the second summer school. And during that summer school, I was offered a 3-year scholarship to train full time at the school. So I moved to London when I was 15. But my school now is based in Birmingham.
And you moved to London at 15. Did you go by yourself? Did your parents come with you? Or
No, by myself. Yeah.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah, I was lucky though, because first year of upper school in the Royal Ballet School, they had a boarding house with supervision. So for the first year, there was some adults in the building that we were all in. And I think what was great is that we were all in that same boarding house. So there was a lot of us young people, obviously missing home, missing our family, but we were all in the same boat. And that was quite helpful to know that you weren't alone.
That makes it a lot easier to have, friends and people with like-minded interests. You're surrounded by dancers. And I know that at Blommaert Ballet School, a big focus for you is community. Is that kind of what sparks your interest in sort of building community? And how do you make sure that you build an environment that supports that at the school?
So, yes, I do like creating a community. The people who know me know that I work hard. I'm always trying to be helpful to everyone. I'm always trying to be happy. And that's kind of the environment I want to create. So I want our students to be happy, confident, resilient young people that are ready for the dance industry, because the dance industry is quite a individual industry in itself. Yes, if you're lucky, you make it into a company and you've got a lot of people that you get to work with. But at the end of the day, it's your career. And that lovely environment of colleagues, in a way, they're also, slightly your competition to get to the top. So it's quite an individual career, but I make sure that they have people skills and they can work with other people. And for me, it's all about encouraging each other. And although it's your own career, be happy for someone else if they're one step ahead of you. And if someone's better than you, try and learn from those who are better and put it in your pocket. And just be the most confident dancer you can be, because we're all individual, and this ballet world would be very boring if we were all identical.
That's so true. And there is a lot of healthy competition in ballet, but you're right that you can always learn from the dancers around you. Even if you're sort of in competition with each other, there's always something to learn.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know that it says on your website that you sort of maybe somewhat unintentionally kind of became known as an audition preparation school. And you've had some incredible achievements over the last 2 years. I think you've had students secure over 100 places. Maybe that's changed now at vocational schools. Like I said, you've had so much success. So how does it feel to be sort of coaching these dancers who are early in their career and training, and then seeing them go off to build these successful careers, and especially doing that in just a few years with the school?
I mean, that's why I love what I do. We're very fortunate that students and their parents trust us to guide us in their journey. Yeah, the reason I say it was unintentional is because we had our first cohort of students and they ended up doing really well. And the second year was like, we've seen that you've helped this student achieve that. Can we do the same? And now the main thing that we do is students come to us and they say, look, in 10 months' time, I want to be ready for auditions. Can you help us? So that's why, and in a way, it's really nice because it means that we get, I love all my students, but what's nice is we get a whole refresh of students every year. And some students, because we offer full-time training as well, some students, we get to keep for a few years, and that's very exciting because you can see a bit of the longer process. But it's really nice to work with students a little bit more short-term and to see them excel. Then, because you learn so much from every individual student. Every time I get a new student, I feel like I'm even better equipped to help them because, you just learn so much from every single process with every single student.
And I know, with this podcast, we have a range of listeners, all different ages. Some of them are studying, more recreationally, and some of them are, studying to go on to professional careers. And I was curious what your best advice is, for dancers who are preparing to audition or seeking a professional career in ballet. What are some of the most important things you coach them on?
The basics.
So important.
Yeah, we get so many students who are, let's say, 14, 15, who want to excel at the vocabulary that you need to be able to do at 14, 15. Whereas as a school, we're not afraid to go back to the basics, even if you are 14 or 15. And we go straight back to proper posture. This is how you should stand. This is how you do a proper tonju, and we explain that to the parents and the student, we understand you're this age. This is what you should be doing. However, it will take us a little bit of time to actually go back to the basics and start doing everything properly. And before you know it, you'll be back to that more advanced vocabulary, but you'll be able to do it a lot easier and better because we've aligned all those basics up for you. And I think a lot of teachers, it's quite a difficult position to be put in to have to be honest and say, look, I really think that the best I can do for you is to go back. It's quite hard to have to advise that to someone. You have to do what you feel right. And I feel like the basics, as you know, are so important, and it's the base of everything. So yeah, the basics is probably the main thing. I'm not afraid of simplicity as well in terms of not in terms of my teaching, but in terms of the exercises. When you're teaching someone, no matter of their age, whether they're 12 or 62, if you really want someone to excel at a certain step or to focus on a certain correction, simplicity is the best way. Just a simple développé to the front with really key corrections to think about. It doesn't have to be complicated if you want to get a good result. So I think going back to the basics and keeping things simple, so a student can leave the class really feeling that they've learned something and they've really mastered something, rather than going through a whole ballet class and thinking, okay, that was a great workout, but what did I learn?
Yeah, I think this is so key. And it's something that I found, in my journey with ballet as well, because, I feel like for a while, it's tough to find teachers that go back to the basics and focus on those things. And I was like, why can't I get, my turns better? Why can't I get my leg higher? I've been working at this for a long time. And I realized once I found those teachers where it really clicked and they went back to the basics, there were so many things that were wrong with just my alignment, my posture, the way that I was like setting up my turn. And I think that's so important, and it's tough to focus on with a large class. But I think, that's great for young dancers who are going on to professional careers, but also even, adults who listen to this podcast who, might be doing it more recreationally, but really want to, as you said, not just get a workout, but be challenged and learn. It's really important to go back to some of those basic things.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because as a school, I mean, we do private tuition only, mainly, and we do have quite a few adults. And what's interesting, and I think the reason why the adults we work with like what we do is we actually don't treat them like adults. Of course, if you have pains here and there, or, if we need to be aware of any injuries, that's something we work around with. But in my school, if you're an adult, let's say you're 45, and you say, look, I really want to improve my ballet technique, then we're going to push you as much as we would push a younger person. If and we set homework, and we like to give the same approach. It doesn't matter what age you are. If you have a goal, we're happy to help you. The one thing we do look for as a school is we want dedicated students. So we are very inclusive of recreational or vocational. You can do ballet once a week or 6 times a week. As long as you come to class with eagerness to learn, then you're welcome with us. And it doesn't matter what age you are. And I think that's what the adults like about what we offer as a school is, okay, you want to work? Let's work.
I love that. That's so great because I talk to so many adult dancers where I think things are starting to change a little bit, but those resources where they really can be challenged and can be pushed are so scarce sometimes, and especially in smaller communities. So I love that that's what you're doing because there are so many adult dancers who really want that. And, if you want to work, yeah, let's come to the studio, let's work.
Yeah.
I know that, as you mentioned, you offer a lot of private coaching, one-on-one training, rather than having these larger classes. So what contributed to your decision to sort of go that route with the school, and what drew you to, more private coaching?
Like growing up, I also always trained in vocational ballet schools, but on the side, I always took private coaching as well. And at the time it was, and it's still like that in many schools where at my schools, it wasn't allowed. I wasn't allowed to take external classes. So I always had to keep it quiet. And a lot of schools still have those policies. But yeah, we're more like a tutoring business. Just like you might have a maths tutor if your child is slightly behind or they want to get slightly ahead. That's the service we offer. Most of the students that we work with on a weekly basis, so just once a week. And it could be a simple thing like, look, my son or daughter needs to improve their foot alignment a little bit more. And we really think that can be achieved through one additional class a week. Can you help us with that? And obviously, that's something that we can help with. So then we say yes. So it's more like a tutoring. And ballet is a subject, just like any other academic subject. It's more like a tutoring, just once a week. This is what we can help you with, either because you want to keep up with your peers or because you want to be slightly ahead of your peers. But I think as well, you can get a lot more out of a student in a private setting because all eyes are on that student. You don't have to look at 20 children in one go. You don't have to accommodate to 20 students at the same time. I mean, it's such a luxury to have, private coaching because all eyes are on you. Every correction that comes from the teacher is aimed at you. I know from my own experience, training at the Royal Ballet School of Antwerp and at the Royal Ballet School, I became very good because I had to at absorbing every correction. It may not apply to me, but I really had my ears open to everything because I thought, okay, this correction might not be for me, but it could apply to my practice. So I think that there's good, you learn, it's the same thing when I was dancing with the Royal Ballet, getting an individual correction once a month was like, hooray, how great is this? Yeah. Because everything's so general, for the whole group. So yeah, you can just get so much out of a student or for a student out of a class when it's on a one-to-one basis. So I think that's why we went that route.
Obviously, there are benefits, to both being a part of a large class and also having that one-on-one coaching, but you can really sort of drill down in that way with those students and focus, as you said, on the basics, kind of, correcting, all these little things that can then go and apply when they take, a larger class. And I know your website also talks about online teaching services, how that was sort of born out of COVID and then still remains strong at the school now. So how did the Ballet On Demand platform kind of come about? Have you seen that sort of helping expand access to ballet and open up the type of training that you can offer at the school?
Yeah, so Ballet On Demand is actually something that stems really from COVID. I'm not sure if you're aware, but during COVID, I did 100 free classes over 100 days to help dancers, to stay in shape. I'll be honest, it was also to help me cope with COVID, because suddenly the world being blocked off was something that I got very anxious about, and it just gave me motivation to do something good every day. I did 100 ballet classes for 100 days in a row, and I was able to raise £7,000. I think on day 42, one of the dancers said, why don't you start a GoFundMe and raise money by doing this? Because at one point I had like 400 dancers joining me on Instagram Live during COVID. I mean, it was huge numbers. The world opened up again. But a lot of those dancers that joined me on those 100 days wanted to continue at least a weekly class. And that's where that weekly class still runs today. We do it every Thursday night. And from there, Ballet on Demand was kind of created. Obviously, we want to be as accessible to the world as possible. Obviously, private coaching isn't always the cheapest route to training. So we started Ballet on Demand really as an online learning platform. So on Ballet on Demand, you can find lots of ballet classes from beginners, intermediate, advanced. We have audition preparation courses, both for lower schools and upper schools here in the UK. The lower school is up until 15, and then upper school is 16 to 18. And that talks about everything to do with auditions, from what to think about, what to wear, how to present yourself, how to do your hair, what the panel might be looking for. And yeah, it's just everything that we offer in private tuition, but obviously at a more accessible price, and also accessible to people's time, because not everyone has time for private tuition, whereas on Ballet on Demand, you can just click on the class whenever you have a spare hour and do it in your own time, which is really good.
I love that you offer this. And first of all, congratulations. That's such an incredible accomplishment to have raised, so much money during COVID and to have offered 100 classes over 100 days. I'm sure that brought so much hope and light to the community when, we were struggling with COVID and everyone was kind of shut inside. I was really inspired by how the whole ballet community sort of came together during that time. I took class online every day, and it was the same thing. It was kind of like, this is really getting me through the day.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. And like you said, I really felt like as a community, we all came together. I probably should add that the money I raised was donated to the NHS, which is the National Health Service here in the UK. And so it went directly back into the health system. That helped all of us here. Obviously, I know £7,000 is a small amount in the big picture, but I was very proud of my little achievement.
You should be. Congratulations. We don't have an audience, a live audience, but I would ask for a round of applause because that's amazing.
Oh, thank you.
That's a huge accomplishment. And, as I said, I love that you focus on community. I love that you did this Ballet on Demand platform to sort of bring the community together. If somebody's interested in signing up for that Thursday class, can they just do that through your website, or how can they get more information?
Yeah, so we have a separate Instagram page and website for Ballet on Demand, which is just www.balletondemand.com. And yeah, you can just sign up, and we do have a community chat on there as well. So if you have any questions about any of the classes, or you have questions about a correction that you're wanting to work on, then that's really, in the chat area is your chance to get some direct feedback from me or a member of my team. And yeah, it's just a really nice group. I mean, some of the people in that group are still from COVID, from the little community we built during COVID. So it's really nice. And it's a weekly reminder of how far we've come since COVID, and, how appreciative we should be that the world has opened up again. And, I think for a lot of dancers, especially those dancers training at the time, imagine you're 12 and COVID just hit and you're at a prime time for your training, and suddenly everything is done from home. Or those dancers auditioning for companies that had to wait 1 or 2 years to re-audition. I mean, it must have been such a difficult time, for those students in particular. Looking at, I work with a lot of students who come to me and they said, yeah, I started ballet during COVID. And I think, wow, you started at home. How great that you've come this far, even though the first 2 years you've had to learn everything kind of from a screen. It's very hard to not get, feedback from a teacher in person. And yeah, it's very inspiring to me what some of these young people have done and are still achieving now.
It really is, and how everyone sort of came through that. Because I'm sure, as you said, for the professional dancers who are furloughed or, dancers who are planning on going out on auditions, that really sets you back a year or two, having to study from home. And, dancers who kind of their first introduction to ballet was at home. I think, that's kind of a great sort of silver lining, is that it sort of opened up access and gave people more entryways into the world of ballet. Speaking of
Yeah.
introductions to ballet, I wanted to kind of dive into your background as well, too. And I was curious what your first introduction to ballet was, or how did you first become interested in it?
So I started dancing, I should say dancing, when I was 4 because it wasn't balletic. I had a little friend in kindergarten who invited me to a dance camp, and I went along. I loved it, and I think it was a summer camp at the time. And yeah, in September I rolled into dance classes. I've got a twin brother who is a professional figure skater. So as when we were young, we both started dancing as well as figure skating. And yeah, he went the skating route and I went the dancing route. But I had a lot of inspiration around me from a very young age, dancing wise, because my teacher in Belgium of my first school, he used to dance with Béjart company in Switzerland. And his daughter was studying at the Royal Ballet School in Antwerp. And she was kind of 15, 16, 17, as I was really young, learning to dance. And I was so inspired, and I thought one day I'm going to go to that school. So when I was finally 10 and I was old enough to audition, I went straight to the audition, and luckily I was successful. And yeah, so those were my first introductions to ballet. And what's interesting is when I did go to London for that summer school that I mentioned earlier, I realized in what a bubble I was growing up. I thought I'm going to go to the Royal Ballet School of Antwerp, and then I'm going to aim to join the company in Antwerp. I didn't even know about companies abroad or schools abroad. That summer school abroad really opened my eyes to how big this ballet world is, and yeah, what an exciting world of dance there is, rather than being in my little bubble in Belgium at the time.
It is, there's so much that encompasses ballet, and that's really exciting. It sounds like you have a really accomplished family, your brother doing professional figure skating and you as a professional dancer. That makes me really happy. Those are two of my favorite things.
Nice.
And so
Yeah.
was that sort of when you went to the Royal Ballet School of Antwerp, or was it a little bit later when you went to the summer program? Was that sort of the point when you decided that you wanted to dance professionally, or how did that happen?
No, I knew from when I was like 5 years old. I
Oh,
was
yes
like,
way.
yeah. I was like, this is for me. I'm very music driven. I love music. I'm one of those people that when I listen to music, I'm not a sit stiller. I need to move, and I think that's why dance is really was really good for me as a young person as well. I just love music. I love moving to music, and I think yeah, a lot of people say, "Oh, I love being on stage and I love performing." I enjoyed that, but it was more the music for me. Being one with the music, and that's really where my passion laid when it came to dance.
I love that. So it was in you from a very young age, and you had this dream, and you really made it happen. I know that, graduating from the school, you were offered a contract with the Royal Ballet Company. You danced there for 7 years and then got promoted to first artist. So can you talk about your career as first artist with the Royal Ballet Company? What was that experience like? And is there anything that stands out, or a few things that stand out as favorite memories from that time?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I loved my time at the Royal Ballet Company. It's such a good but busy company, and that's what I've come to realize, like leaving the company, like how busy we actually were. I think most companies, you have a rehearsal period and then you have a performing period. So you might rehearse for 4 weeks and then you have like for example 3 weeks of shows. Whereas at the Royal Ballet it was very very much the opposite. So I think when we came back after the summer holiday, we would have about 5 to 6 weeks to get the first production going. But whilst that first production was going, during the day, we were already rehearsing the second and third production. So during the working hours, we were working on upcoming productions, whilst at night performing a production that we had rehearsed previously. At one given time, especially if we were doing triple bills, we could be working on 5 different ballets while still performing a previous one in the evenings. It was so busy, and we had to remember so many things, which as a professional dancer, those if you're not a dancer, you probably look at a 3-hour ballet and think, how can they remember all those steps? As you become used to remembering all those things. Yeah, I came away thinking, wow, we were busy, doing 6-7 shows a week, every week, rehearsing so many ballets. But yeah, I think I was very lucky, especially my first year. I was a very good partner, so I was good at partnering work. And fortunately for me, but unfortunately for some other dancers, in my first year, I was lucky to be an understudy to a lot of dancers that unfortunately got injured, because that's kind of how you get opportunities. Because in a big company like the Royal Ballet, you don't just join and do soloist roles. You have to wait, and you have to go through the ranks. There's quite, what I really like is, there's a hierarchy and there's a lot of respect in the company, in a big company like that. And I quite like that. I didn't mind having to wait for opportunities. But having said that, in my first year, I did get a lot more opportunities than I would have done if injuries to others didn't happen. So I got to, perform in some amazing ballets. I remember in my first year, Christopher Wheeldon choreographed Alice's Adventures in Wonderland.
Yeah.
And I was an understudy for the fish. That's the character it was called. And at one point, everyone who was casted for the fish and the other understudy, apart from me, all got injured. So I ended up having to do all the shows. And, as a young 18-year-old, being alongside, at the time, the other bigger roles or soloist roles were performed by soloists. And there was little me, first year in the company, being able to dance along them. So I've got some really fun memories. But even the last ballet I did, which was Kenneth Macmillan's Romeo and Juliet, I got to be dance along Francesca Hayward doing her debut, and I got to be her Paris. And that was really special as well. Especially, Francesca Hayward is she's the principal now and has been for some time, but she was such a great and upcoming ballerina at the time. I don't think she was principal yet at the time, so it was just really exciting to be alongside her and support her, because I knew she was going to go and do great things anyway. So yeah, just over the 7 years, loved it. I have to say, I loved all the corps de ballet work as well. I loved being part of a team. Yeah, I wasn't one to just go and grab the soloist roles. I enjoyed everything. I enjoyed the whole experience of a group of people putting on a good show.
That's amazing. It sounds like an incredible experience, and I'm sure you have a treasure trove of amazing memories, from that time. And I know that I heard you speaking on another podcast about often understudying for some of these soloist and principal roles, and being asked to sort of learn choreography or perform in a show at the last minute. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about some of the skills that ballet teaches you, especially when you're in an environment like that, to be competitive, to adapt, to learn quickly, and how those things sort of translated to your career as a business owner, an instructor outside of dancing professionally.
Okay. There's a lot in that question to answer.
Yeah, sorry, it's a loaded question.
No, it's okay. It was a downfall to me, but it was my asset was that I was a very quick learner, and the company knew that. Let's say I was in the corps de ballet on the right side in a 3-act ballet. They knew that I could be pushed to the left side last minute if I had to. And I say it's the downfall to me because that was stressful sometimes. At times, that was really stressful. I'm not going to lie. But I was proud to be that dancer, to be that one. Okay, yeah, I'll do it. Don't worry, you can rely on me, because at the Royal Ballet, we have it's called a half-hour call. So the cast sheet can change up until half an hour before the show. And of course, in some instances, if a dancer gets injured in Act 1 and they need someone for Act 2 and Act 3, of course, then that timeline is even shorter. And I wasn't the only one. There was a group of us that were very quick, and we were very adaptable. I think like taking on my skills that I learned as a dancer and a ballet student actually into now running a business is kind of, I think, why the business does quite well. I'm very dedicated. People know I struggle to close my laptop and switch off my phone because, I'm all in. This school is my baby, and I I often tell my students, look, rest is as important as the work you put in. And that's something that I need to learn to listen to myself, because that's not something that I've learned or mastered just yet. But, it's a new school. It's very exciting. But yeah, I think the dedication you learn as a dancer, the not being scared of hard work. I'm not scared of hard work. I'm not scared of doing long days. If I have to work through the night, I will. Yeah, I think as a dancer, you're just so willing to give yourself to the art form. And that's the biggest trait that I have now as a business owner is I'm willing to go as far as I need to make this a success. And that definitely stems from my dancing background and the training that I've received growing up.
That's a great quality to have, and I'm sure it's so appreciated by your students as well. And ballet, does really teach you those skills that can translate to so many other aspects of your life. I think of myself as someone who's pretty quick to pick up on choreography, but you just stressed me out thinking of having 30 minutes to switch, and learn new choreography or kind of switch from the right to the left side of the stage. That sounds incredibly stressful. So that's a great achievement
Well,
that you were able to do.
well, yeah, I mean, what's interesting, what people don't know is, in those instances, I mean, there's no way you can learn a 3-act ballet in half an hour. Often, especially in corps de ballet work, you just have to do everything on the opposite leg. You'd be interested, or people on this podcast might be interested to know that when you're on stage, for example, in the Royal Ballet, and let's say I've had to move from stage right to stage left, the help I would receive from the dancers around me, literally saying, go right, go left, this comes next, even if there's like a still moment, we'd be talking to each other and they'd say, okay, next is that diagonal, make sure you run to that cross. And, and obviously you can smile and talk, there's an art in not showing that you're talking on stage when in fact you are. But the support we all gave each other at the Royal Ballet was so amazing, because at the end of the day, it was about the show as a whole. It wasn't about me going from stage right to stage left. In fact, it wasn't about me. It's about the principals and them doing the best jobs that they can do. Yeah, it's quite interesting how even on stage you can get given information about what comes next, or where you should be standing, or which girl you should run to. So it's a very that community feel is definitely there in the company.
That's so interesting to know, because you would never know as an audience member, obviously watching the show, that the dancers are all kind of communicating with each other. But of course, yeah, obviously you are. And as you said, that's part of the gift of sort of putting a show together, is that it's very collaborative. You're all making something together, which is awesome to see it come together. And so once you sort of decided to leave your career performing on stage, what drew you to teaching in particular, and how did you sort of make that transition?
Yeah, so I know I mentioned my brother, who is a figure skater. So when I joined the Royal Ballet Company, we always had a 6-week summer break. And during those breaks, obviously, because I'm a twin and I didn't get to see my brother a lot, I would go to visit him. He didn't get much of a break at the time, because the skating season's slightly different to a normal academic year. And yeah, the first year I went, I was asked, would I teach some ballet to skaters? And I said yes. And, then following year, I got even busier doing that during the summer holiday. And that's kind of where I fell in love with ballet teaching. And it's interesting I say that, because it was to non-dancers, it was to skaters. I love teaching ballet as well to athletes and recreational dance. It doesn't always have to be the vocational student. And then, yeah, I just fell in love. I just fell in love with teaching. And even talking to you today, yes, I went to the Royal Ballet School. Yes, I danced with the Royal Ballet, but I feel like my role in the dance world is the the role that I should be doing in the dance world is what I'm doing now, is the teaching. I get so much out of teaching. The joy you feel after a performance and the whole audience is clapping. I get that times 10 when my student excels or they get a school offer. It's even better than applause after a show to me, and that's why I know that this is what I like to do. But I like everything about the teaching. I like the teaching itself. I like the emotional support. I like you know I like building people's confidence. Yeah, I like the whole thing.
I love that. You can tell that you're so passionate about it. It really exudes from you. And I'm sure, that makes you an incredible teacher. And I'm sure it translates to your students as well. And they carry that with them, when they leave your studio and go on to, follow their careers or whatever they end up doing in their lives. And I wanted to get back to, we talked about at the beginning how you sort of started with your business with Blommaert Ballet and toning and kind of teaching, adults and more recreational students. And those are, that's a lot of our audience for this podcast. So I was curious what you learned from that experience, teaching adults, and what sort of drew you to that population in particular.
Yeah, so obviously I've listened to some of your podcasts before doing this interview, and it's interesting that a lot of the people you've spoken to also say they just adore teaching adults, and I definitely will say the same. I learned so much. The reason I started teaching adults in the first place was at the time in London, because I used to live in London at the time. I felt like there was a little bit of a gap in the market for adult classes, or adult classes with a twist. A lot of the adult classes in London at the time used to be either complete beginner or advanced level, and kind of nothing in between. Whereas there's a big group of adult dancers that are somewhere in between. They've got the vocabulary, they're not quite advanced yet, and so which class do we fit in? So I started several classes: complete beginners, idiot, and advanced. I mean, I learned so much from adults. Obviously, I think if you're younger, I think you learn slightly easier, especially if it's something that's new to you. Obviously, as an adult, let's say you're a complete beginner in ballet, it's like learning a whole new language. It's like starting to learn French on Duolingo. Where do you start? And it was so interesting to figure out all the learning differences of everyone. Some people were visual learners, some people liked the kinesthetic feedback, others were more audible. They wanted to hear things over and over. And it was just a really interesting process to accommodate to all. But also, what I love about teaching adults is the interaction you get. Often when you teach younger students, it's the teacher talking and you get a polite nod. Adults aren't afraid to ask questions or to say, look, that doesn't make sense to me. Can you start again? And I like that. I like the interaction. So I really enjoyed teaching adults, and I'm so happy that I still do today.
Love that you offered classes kind of starting at beginner level all the way through to advanced. And, I teach kids as well, and I've taught adults in the past. And I agree with you. I like that interactive element because you're right, with kids, they don't always know what questions to ask, and they're kind of more listening and retaining information. But with adults, it's really, you get feedback from them as much as you're giving feedback to them, which I think is a cool exchange. And I know you spoke earlier, and I've heard you speak before about how you feel like, teaching is really always what you've been meant to do in ballet, even beyond, the stage. I'm curious, one, how it feels to sort of realize that that's your true passion in ballet, and what your goals are for the future of the school, or, what's next that you can share.
God, I mean, I get that question. I get the question a lot. A lot of people encourage me to go bigger, to actually start a proper school with boarding houses and academics as well. I feel like this is only really like the beginning of what I'm doing. I take every day by day. I like that I like that we're in demand, and I like that we're busy. If anything, I want to inspire people even more. From a business point, I'm happy. We're busy. We've got a team of 7 now. To think that 2 years ago, I started on my own, and now I'm able to provide work for another 6 people. That's just amazing. That's a position that I never thought I would be in. But yeah, I'd like to just continue to inspire. I mean, for example, I've worked with this young student. His name is Isaac, and he only started ballet last September, and it's now April, and next week he's starting in a vocational ballet school. And he went through quite a bit of bullying at school. I think I was really able to encourage him to keep going and to not listen to the bullies. And it's those things that are special to me. I want to just continue to inspire and motivate, because the ballet world is especially for young students who want to become a professional. It's hard. If I look at some of the graduating students now at the Royal Ballet School, when I graduated from the Royal Ballet School, I wasn't as strong as the kids from today. That the levels going up. Yeah, it's a difficult one. So yeah, I just want to keep encouraging people and to just teach them that hard work does pay off. Every sweat, every tear, it's all part of the game. But just be happy in the process. That would be my biggest advice. Be happy and remind yourself why you're doing this. Because without that passion, you can't have that dedication that's needed.
I think that's such great advice. And, hard work does pay off. You're a testament to that with your career and everything that you've accomplished. And, I think you are really inspiring so many people. You mentioned at the beginning of our conversation that your studio is in your garden, which I think sounds like such a beautiful, inspiring place just on its own. And then to have you as an instructor and then, all the instructors that you work with, I think it just sounds like you're doing such great work for the ballet community. And I'm excited to see what's next for you. And I know we're getting close to the end, but we have a Petit Allegro section on the podcast where it's just sort of rapid fire questions, if you're okay with doing that. Just sort
Okay.
of
Yeah, sure. Fun.
Well, one thing I like to ask everyone is sort of, whether you're teaching or whether, back when you were dancing professionally, what's one thing that you always have to have in your ballet bag at every class or rehearsal?
Rosin.
That's so important. Yeah, because you never know what the floor is going to be like.
You never know.
That's good. Do you have a favorite show or role that you've performed in throughout your career?
Yeah, definitely Paris in Romeo and Juliet.
That sounds like it was an amazing show. And then I know you mentioned earlier in our conversation that you have some fun backstage memories. And I like to ask anyone who's performed professionally if they have any, funny memories from backstage. Is there anything that you can share that comes to mind?
I'm not a superstitious person, but I had quite a superstition little thing whilst I was performing. And it was simply, I had to tap the floor 3 times with my fist before the curtains went up, just the actual podium. And then I could go into the wings and I knew I was gonna be good. And that was my personal backstage little ritual. But yeah, backstage, I loved backstage. Backstage is where the magic happens for dancers. You're chilling, you're watching, you're giggling. I think a lot of people would be surprised to see what happens backstage, because on stage, everything's so rehearsed and perfect. But backstage it's just where magic happens really behind the scenes.
I love that. I agree with you. It's so fun to be on stage and to be performing, and there's so much magic in that too. But backstage is really, it's a magic all its own. It's so fun to be a part of that community of dancers.
Yeah.
As you said, laughing together and enjoying the show from behind the scenes. And then, I'm curious if there's someone who's mentored you throughout your career, or maybe any advice that you've shared, that you've received that you can share.
Yes. My teacher, the first year I joined the Royal Ballet School, Milas Pakri, he taught me hard work. I can confess now, I did not know what it meant to work hard until he was my teacher for a year. And he inspired me so much because of the hard work ethic that he taught me. I saw the results of my own hard work. And that's something that I'll be forever grateful to, even today, running a business. I can still hear his voice in my head saying, look, it will all pay off, but you've got to give it your all. And up until that point, things kind of came easy to me. I have an easy ballet body, all of that. But yeah, I really, from that moment on, and I've never looked backwards. If I do something, and this is what I say to all my students, If you're going to commit to something, do it 100%. If you're going to cook a meal, make it a good meal. If you're going to clean your house, clean it well. If you're going to do a tunju, do a good one. And that kind of approach to life, either do it 100% or don't do it, or like me, get a cleaner because they do a better job than you if that's not something you're passionate about.
It's such great advice. It's so true. Yeah, you have to be all in. It's so important.
Yeah.
And you mentioned your brother's a figure skater. You've done figure skating as well. Is there any other sport or any style of dance that you haven't tried that you'd like to?
Well, I've never done tap, and I would love to do tap. However, I'm worried that as a ballet dancer that I'm not quite loose enough in my ankles, because as ballet dancers, we're so in control of everything we do that I'm not sure if I could let go of that technique and be a tapper. Now that you've asked me, it's kind of sparked this. It's sparked this interest again. So maybe I'll give it a go and let you know next time.
Yeah, I hope you do. Yeah, and when you come back on the podcast, definitely let me know how it goes.
Okay.
And then the last question that I always ask everyone who comes on the podcast is, in a perfect world, what would ballet look like, or what would you want it to be?
I would want it to be inclusive. With inclusive, I mean all ages, all backgrounds, all levels. And I want it to stay heritage to stay also. I'm all for new works and more contemporary styles. I just hope we can keep the classics as well as all the beautiful new creations that are being created, so that there's a wholesome and diverse variety of work being presented to all audiences, because we all have different interests. But yeah, I hope we don't lose those core classical ballets as time goes on.
Those classical ballets, they're iconic for a reason. They're so gorgeous. And I think you do have to have that balance. But I love the work that you're doing to sort of preserve ballet's heritage and also make it, inclusive and welcoming. I think it's so important. And where can people find you and connect with you if, they want to connect with you on social media or check out your website?
Yeah, so my school's Instagram page is at Blommaert Ballet School. And there you'll find all the links to our website. And if they do want to come and take classes with us, we teach worldwide, either in person in the UK or through the beautiful platform of Zoom that I will be forever grateful for online. Yeah, because it's really special. I get to work with students in Australia and in America, in Japan and in Germany, and it just makes for a very interesting day. Which is really nice.
Oh, that's awesome. We'll definitely include links to all of that in the show notes, so anyone listening can, check out what you're doing. And I know you're very active on social media. I always see your great videos pop up all the time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. It's been so great to learn from you, and I hope we can stay in touch. I just really love what you're doing.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, I really enjoyed the chat. Yeah, like I said, I listened to the other episodes, and I love what you're doing. It's really nice.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I loved talking to Sander. I love his commitment to ballet as an art form and the way he takes technical training so seriously for all of his students, from the young students studying to become professional dancers to the older adults who want to be taken seriously as well. I loved what he said, that if you want to come to the studio and work, let's work. If you want to learn more about Blommaert Ballet School or Sander, I'll include a link to his social media and website in the show notes. As always, you can reach out to me with any questions or comments at theadultballetstudio@gmail.com or on Instagram at eblosfield. And if you like what you're hearing, please rate and review this podcast on your platform of choice. I love to hear from you. We have a new episode coming on June 4th, so be sure to stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, happy dancing, everybody, and see you at the bar.